Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, episode 64. No! 4. Coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, 10. Nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. And we are joined, as always, by the super secret, super special, super hidden, amazing, and good long-term friend and not dead, Mr. Brett England, out in space. How you doing, everybody? What's going on?
Dude, I know I say this every time, but it's like each time the intro, I get more titles and like more pomp, and I'm totally okay with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't think you would have all of our listeners know we're bullshit. Not all of them. One of them was like, man, I can't believe these guys are talking to somebody from outer space.
Secret bunker deep underneath the secret space station. In secret outer space. How's that quantum yoga been treating you lately?
Pretty good. You know, I managed to stay on top of everything. I'm everywhere that I need to be.
I thought of a new product on our quantum line. You know, remember that old game Twister?
Yeah.
Entanglement.
Yeah. Entanglement. Quantum Twister.
7-4.
That's fantastic. It's
Hell
the
yes.
evolution of Twister.
Yeah.
Call it entanglement. I dig it.
Yeah. Twister is the classical mechanics version. Entanglement is the quantum mechanics version.
Yeah. This one only comes with 2 spots.
Yeah. And you stand on one, somebody else stands on the other, and if you spin clockwise, they have to spin counterclockwise. And it has to happen instantly.
Wait a minute, though. If you're playing entanglement and nobody's watching you, what happens then?
You're both. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this is why we do physics experiments, Brad.
You could play some quantum roulette.
Quantum roulette. I bet on black and red. All right. So we got some space weather news.
Oh, I was thinking of like Schrodinger style, Russian quantum roulette, where you're dead and alive at the same time.
I can't remember. I was just reading something recently. It was some joke deal where the guy was writing his friend about his apartment that had caught on fire or whatever. And he had a cat named Schrodinger or whatever, and he was like, and I don't know if he's alive or dead. I haven't been able to find him.
That's perfect.
Okay, so space weather news update. I have this from spaceweather.com. Solar wind incoming. A fast-moving stream of solar wind is approaching Earth. Estimated time of arrival is September 7th. The gaseous material is flowing from a large hole in the sun's atmosphere. Arctic skywatchers should be alert for auroras later this week.
Wow, that's great, Russ. Thanks. And now to news update.
I'm supposed to hand it over to you.
I'm sorry.
And now over to you, Kyle.
Oh yeah, all right. I'll work on that. So what's the deal? We're getting some solar winds?
Yeah, we're getting some solar winds coming in, and my browser just froze.
Oh,
It's
no.
completely frozen. Solar wind froze my browser. Because I had other stories I was going to read on here, but I can't even move the page. Damn it.
It's going to be good sun sailing out there.
All right, see if you can pull up one of your stories while I fix this.
Okay. Stunning anti-aging breakthrough could see humans live to 150 and regenerate organs by 2020 for the price of a coffee a day.
Like a Starbucks coffee.
Yeah,
right?
probably. Like one of those.
$7.80.
I would like a non-fat chai quantum latte, unsweetened. Why don't you just order a hot water?
Yeah, who ordered the hot water?
I don't know what quantum threw in there, but anyway.
That's not a quantum chai.
Okay, so this is actually a good story. Harvard professor David Sinclair and researchers from the University of New South Wales developed a new process which involves reprogramming cells. Dr. Sinclair said the technique could allow people to regenerate organs and even allow paralysis sufferers to move again, with human trials due within 2 years. The same researchers also found they could increase the lifespan of mice by 10% by giving them a vitamin B derivative pill. I guess that's what this is. That's the only time it mentions
A vitamin B derivative.
Yeah. Well, there's another name for it, but
Okay.
I'll get to that. It also said the pill led to a reduction in age-related hair loss. Professor Sinclair said he hoped the pill would be available to the public within 5 years and cost the same each day as a cup of coffee. But the professor from the Department of Genetics at Harvard Medical School warned that people not try it. The science behind the new technique involves the molecule nicotinamide, adenine dinucleotide.
NAD. NAD. NAD.
Did you take your NADs today? Which plays a role.
Nicotinamide, is that like from smokes?
Yeah, basically. This plays a role in generating energy in the human body. The chemical is already used as a supplement for treating Parkinson's disease and fighting jet lag. So that right there, yeah, nicotine.
Yeah.
It's a neurological stimulant.
Yeah. Fighting jet lag.
Professor Sinclair, who is using his own molecule to reduce the aging process, said his biological age has dropped by 24 years after taking the pill. He said his father, 79, has been whitewater rafting and backpacking after starting using the molecule a year and a half ago.
Wow.
The professor also said his sister-in-law was now fertile again after taking the treatment, despite having started to transition into menopause in her 40s.
Wow.
So, yeah. That's pretty cool. 150?
Yeah. It increases the lifespan of, they've increased the lifespan of mice by 10%, it's like 2 days. It makes them live 2 days longer.
Brett says it comes from the nicotinic receptor, which is activated by many things, one of them being nicotine. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty badass.
That'll give us a lot longer of time to look for ancient pyramids.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
Trials start in 2 years.
Yeah, sweet.
Hope
That's
that's on the
awesome.
market in 5 years. So yeah, it like regenerates cells, it rebuilds.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it has an effect on the telomeres.
Okay.
Yeah, so the next guy that goes to space nees to be taking those and see if it, like, you know, drastically increases his lifespan.
Super space
Yeah,
genes.
super space genes. Yeah. You go to space, smoke, take those pills, you live forever.
Max Payne. Smoke and take your pills.
Yeah. Grabbing pills.
I just can't believe they're calling it NADS.
Yeah, NADS.
Come on.
Yeah, that's kind of a funny name. Okay, so there was this interesting thing about the Atacama Desert and Shadows of Venus, okay? So this is back to space weather news. The Atacama Desert in northern Chile is one of the best places in the world to look at the sky. The desert's unique combination of high altitude, clear skies, and zero light pollution make it a global destination for astronomers. On September 1st, astronomer Danielle Gaspari was standing under the Milky Way in the Atacama. Like, how can you not be standing under the Milky Way if you're anywhere on the planet? You are underneath it. When something caught his eye, not up in the sky, but rather on the side of his car. It was my Venus shadow, he says. The sky in Atacama is so dark that even the light of Venus can generate clear shadows. Yeah. Photographing it was easy. I used a Sony A7 camera with a 12mm f2.8 fisheye lens. A single 30-second exposure and a 6400 ISO revealed both the shadow on my car as well as the Milky Way just behind. So the picture I thought that was interesting. The Atacama Desert also has always interesting ancient. Like the Atacama Giant. It's a massive petroglyph. I think we looked at it one time when I on the show. He's got those 3 lines coming off his face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like he had whiskers or...
Yeah.
Or he was like a projection. The natives were trying to draw a hologram on the ground. They saw it and he's like, And they just put lines on either side of his face. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so the Watcher is saying the opposite of the nicotinic receptor is the muscarinic, which curare acts on. Curare is that that's an anesthetic. That's what they use for anesthetic. And it's what they like the Amazon native uses. 3 darts is too much. But the tiniest bit of that curare stuff can, like, it completely paralyzes you. And if you have a little bit too much of it, it paralyzes you so much that your lungs and your heart stop working. But if you use the right amount, you can knock somebody out.
Operate
and have them be completely neurologically paralyzed to the point where this is why they put all the monitoring devices on you, because you have to guess, because nobody knows how it works. Nobody knows how it's working and how it does what it does. But it like, the other thing, like, you knock somebody out with liquor or, alcohol or other things, like people can twitch and spaz, and that's not good operation. This just like makes you completely paralytic. So the idea is to get somebody just above the level of death.
Man, that's freaky.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I have this idea that, like, restless leg syndrome may be an after effect of being put on curare and put under anesthesia. Because it does something to your, to your nerves or whatever. And I never had it until after I went under operation. And ever since then, I've always had this problem. And I've asked a couple other people about it. I'm like, that say they have restless leg. I'm like, have you had it your whole life? They're like, no. I'm like, did you recently undergo some kind of operation where they put you in? They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah. So did it start after that? Yeah. Okay. So I think it's probably that. Maybe.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And they don't know how it works. They don't know why it works.
No, they don't know why it works. Yeah. It's a. I mean, they like Brett was saying, it works on this receptor, but they don't know what is happening. They don't know what it's. Same way with with DMT. They don't know how any of these compounds affect us the way they do. They're not really. It's not really clear.
Yeah. They just know that they do.
Right. It's totally obvious that they do affect us. Yeah. It's just not really clear how. They've gone as far as to find out, okay, it plugs into this receptor, but then what happens after that is not really clear. And Brett, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong.
And how can you, completely shut down your neurological network, but then it just comes back online later? Right. Why does that happen?
Yeah, they just start talking about hunting bulls and stuff. You remember that story from the last time I got operated on for when I had that polyp in my larynx? One of our friends was there, and she said, it was one of those deals where you wake up and you don't remember.
Yeah.
Right? And she said, I woke up and I was talking about, wrestling bulls and throwing steers around, and I have no idea. I was like, I don't remember that at all. And she's like, yeah, you were like, I'm going to grab these bulls and throw them down. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I have no idea what you're talking about. All right, come on in. What's up, Brett?
So, yeah, you're definitely right with that. The best explanation that they have is it affects.
Are you in an ambulance right now? You should turn off your space ambulance siren.
Yeah. Sorry. The ambulances fly by the space station all the time. Anywho, what ends up happening is it raises the required voltage for your nerves to fire. So you're paralyzed because your nerves can't conduct signal.
Do they know how that happens?
Do they know why? Past that point, they can say that it does something to magnesium and calcium entering into the axon of the nerve. But past that, they've got it's an explanation, like all things, up to a point, and then once you get to that point, you go, well, why does it do that? But it does that.
Yeah.
So basically what it does is it paralyzes nerves by making them less electrically active.
Right. It's a step,
you need a greater current change in order for a nerve impulse to fire.
Yeah. Right.
And it only does that
outside of your body's natural range. You can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it wears off and,
And,
everything goes back to normal.
Right, it wears off over time. The problem is that if you dose someone too heavily, they stop breathing. Like you're
Right.
You can numb the voluntary movement without completely killing the involuntary systems.
Yeah.
You dose them a little too high, and the involuntary systems shut off too, and then your heart stops beating and you stop breathing. And
Right, which is
all that
why
good
they
stuff.
put all that stuff on monitoring during
Right.
when somebody's under. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
I love the whole the step 2 problem of the explanation. You know, it's like step 1, steal pants. Step 2, step 3, take over the world.
Steel pants.
You just don't know what step 2 is, but you're step 2, step 3, take over the world.
Step 1, steel pants. What? What is that? That's great.
That's a paraphrase of I can't remember what it's called right now, but it has a name, and it's something ridiculous like steel pants. Step 1 is steel pants, or something like that. I can't remember exactly. I'm paraphrasing the idea, but the concept is like you have this plan, but the middle of the plan, the most important part, is not there, but it doesn't matter. You're going to deal with the plan. Step 1, steel pants. Step 2, step 3, take over the world. Okay, so last week's show, we talked about we were going through some stuff in Underworld with the Maldives. We talked about rock cut temples. Oh, okay, he's saying it's from an episode of South Park. The Underpants Gnomes. There it is. I knew it.
That's freaking awesome.
Step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, step 3, take over the world. Whatever. I knew I was paraphrasing it. I knew it wasn't exactly right. A lot of explanations in science are like that, though.
Yeah.
You know, you get up to a certain point, and then it's like, and then it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but before we get back into Underworld, we had an interesting discussion a little bit about with some of our friends this past weekend, about sleep paralysis. And it was interesting. Brenner, who's been on the show before, was pointing out that he was recently talking to some people, and he was seeing that a lot of people are mentioning that they've had this like horrible bout of sleep paralysis recently, right? And he was looking at space weather news and was correlating it with the solar flare.
Oh.
You know, which is an interesting idea. I thought that was a fascinating concept. That like, there's totally possible that something is happening there that's causing it to increase. You know.
Yeah. So there's like pretty serious solar flare going on.
Well, it was the one that just passed, the G3 flares that we had that caused all the auroras and the steves. Right? And he was just saying, like, okay, you see this, and then you see that all these people are like just mentioning, like, I've just recently had all these horrible episodes of sleep paralysis. You know, now that could be that's correlation, not causation, right?
All right. I'm just gonna have to get a big electromagnet and put it under my pillow. Just turn it on and go to sleep. See what happens.
Yeah, and it might be something specific with the way flares can sometimes affect the magnetic field of the planet. Like,
Yeah.
it you know, hits it like a bell, and the whole thing vibrates, and you know, I don't know. It's an interesting idea. It's a materialist idea, a materialist explanation for it. You know, but it doesn't have to be completely. Like, I've always thought that sleep paralysis, like, okay, so, and I mentioned this when we were talking about this before during the conversation we had during the weekend, that like the Greeks had this. Remember we talked about this, the idea of gates for dreams. Mm-hmm. There's the horn gate and something else. Can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
I think that sleep paralysis is like that. There are two different kinds. Because I've had the kind where it's just paralysis and it doesn't feel like there's anything evil. But then there's other kinds where it's different.
Yeah.
You still have the paralysis effect, but it completely feels like there's this enormous menacing presence, nearby or looming over you or whatever. But I've had episodes of sleep paralysis where none of that is taking place. So.
Yeah. I mean, if something happens, it doesn't mean that there can't be a physical explanation, and also if that be combined with like
that's what I'm saying,
consciousness situation. Yeah.
Right.
Because I mean, anything that you use to explain some strange thing that's going on with your mind, if you're talking about the physical world, you're only explaining part of it.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I was thinking like that's a material explanation, because like a lot of times they'll say like, oh, that all the ominous feelings or whatever that you have during sleep paralysis because you're not actually awake. It's hypnagogic, which means that you're actually still asleep. I'm not entirely.
why are they not just amazingly euphoric?
Right. Exactly. How come they're always evil and horrible? Or just like, this really sucks?
I guess on a scale of this really sucks to incredibly evil and horrible. How was your sleep paralysis last night?
It was like a 7. Man, that's an awful scale.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So number 1 is like, this really sucks. 10 is like, this is incredibly evil and horrible.
Yeah.
That's a great scale for sleep paralysis, though, because there's nothing good about it ever.
That's what I'm saying. So you can't tell me it's just some whatever, because I have dreams that are like incredibly awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. That's a great scale. I'm gonna have to remember that. So on a scale from this really sucks to incredibly evil and horrible, how was your sleep paralysis last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because it's never gonna be like, oh, this is great and badass.
Yeah.
It's never gonna have that. That's right.
Oh, it's just that way because you're not really awake, but you think you are. That doesn't freaking work.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. You're terrified because you can't move. I love not moving. I sit and play video games without freaking moving for hours. Don't tell me that I'm terrified of not moving. Oh, okay, here's the dream stuff with the Greeks. Penelope distinguishes between significant and insignificant dreams. Dreams with no greater meaning come to the dreamer by passing through a gate made of ivory, she says, while significant dreams pass through a gate of horn. See, now that's what I thought the other one was, ivory, but I was like, wait, ivory is a horn, a kind of horn. So that's interesting. Ivory and horn, that they distinguish between those two materials. Like an ivory ivory is the horn of an elephant or pachyderm.
Okay, I thought they were different for some reason.
Well, I mean, it's a horn, right? It's a tusk. It's a
yeah, I don't know.
It's the same material, kind of, I guess. Well, maybe it's
Because
not the same material.
I thought horn material was like
Fingernails.
keratin, whatever it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, maybe they are different material. I thought that they were the same kind of material, but maybe they're not. Okay,
horns.
ram horns and buck horns are horns. Rhino horns and elephant tusks are ivory. Not the same material. Is it made the same way? Is it made of the same stuff? You know? That's what I'm trying to find out here.
What I did find out recently at our local museum is that I think it's camel ribs
Oh, yeah.
can be carved and polished and look just like ivory.
Yeah, they have a beautiful carved thing of camel rib. It looks like an giant ivory tusk.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you're ever walking through the desert and you come upon a camel skeleton,
Yeah, get all the ribs.
grab those ribs.
If you find a camel that gladded, get those ribs. So, have you had sleep paralysis or dreams problems recently?
No.
No?
I've been getting mad because I don't have any.
Oh.
No dreams.
I've had some crazy dreams when I take naps.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not remembering the ones that I'm sleeping, but when I take naps, I wake up and I'm like, what the actual F was that?
Yeah, that usually happens when I take naps, but I recently haven't been. I can't remember anything.
So I had this one that was hilarious.
Yes.
I was telling Dad about it. Like we live on the top of this hill, and in the dream, I already knew this or whatever, but in the dream, Dad had. Okay, so like in the tower that I live in in this house on top of the hill, like I'll sometimes feel vibrations in the floor that I've associated with some kind of, you know, like there's quarrying going on nearby and it's vibrating stuff or whatever, and I feel it. I can feel it in my feet. Thunder vibrates the floor because in the tower, like basically the way the place is constructed is we have these pillars, these concrete pillars that are holding up these giant I-beams of steel, and on top of that we've put this deck of kind of like, it's like a corrugated material like you would see a metal roof, but then it's thicker, and then you fill that with concrete to make the deck, the floor. So it's like it's this big timpani, you know, surface on top of these pillars on these I-beams, and the whole thing can vibrate, and it's like I can feel them when they're moving around in the house downstairs. If they shut a door, I can feel it. It vibrates the floor, right? So thunder makes it happen, and like whenever we get the driveway worked on and they're driving up and down the driveway with the vibrating roller, it makes the whole place, you know. So in the dream, Dad had found out that the reason that was happening is because there was this giant cavern beneath the house, and the whole thing was vibrating, and so he had to get down there to like shore it up, right? Because he didn't want the whole house to collapse in the cavern. And he was telling me in the dream, he was like, oh, well, I went ahead and built a, you know, we made a basement and like this badass, like basically a bunker shelter down there or whatever for the end of the world, because we're always talking about the end of the world on this podcast. So in the dream I was like, oh, that's cool. And then this enormous like freaking thing comes through the sky, a giant meteors all, when I could see the cloud and it was pulsing and there's all this electricity. I'm like, we gotta get to the, and the doors were around the backside of the house, so me and Dad are running. Everybody else is already down in there. And all these lightning bolts, like Shock talked about, started hitting the ground. I come around and the doors are metal. And I'm like, I'm not fucking grabbing those metal doors. That was a great dream.
Glad dream.
Yeah. Yeah, we went down in there and I started shouting and everybody was running around and I was like, get the fuck out. I'm about to explode. I'm like, freaking out. Yep. Sometimes you have dreams about the end of the world.
That's a really good one. At least you had a bunker.
Yeah, the metal doors and giant lightning bolts are hitting all over the place. Yeah.
Grab that door.
Dad has gloves that he grabbed it with. I was like, I'm gonna open that door. He's like, oh, come on. And then he wanted to stand up there and watch. I'm like, no! Get down here. Yeah. I can tell that I'm gonna be flipping out if the end of the world happens. So I'm shouting at everybody. I already do it when I watch videos of explosions. Start shouting at people. Shockwave is coming.
All right. Ivory is like teeth. Horn is like bone. But no.
Why no?
Because the horn
is like,
it has a growth off of it like hair or fingernails. It's
Yeah.
that whatever it's called starts with a K. The word for it. Like whatever
Keratin?
keratin. Is that the word?
I think that's it. Yeah.
And I don't know what ivory is. It's ivory.
Horn has velvet, some horn is keratin.
Has velvet. Oh yeah, that's antler. Like the antler
Yeah.
has velvet. And that is
Antlers are horns, right?
I don't know.
Are they different?
They're not hollow.
Oh.
They're just like actually, I look at them more like bone. Right? Whereas like say a bullhorn.
It's a hairy bone.
A bullhorn has a bone thing that juts out, but it's short, and then the keratin grows off of that.
Right.
Like a fingernail, and it makes it real long or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just interesting that they, like, okay, so dreams with no meaning come through ivory, while significant dreams pass through a gate of horn. That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't understand it.
So the Anunnaki, who had long heads with horns on them, always had significant dreams because they always passed through a gate of horn. What do you think about that?
Because they have horns wrapped around their heads.
That's right. So
I was just sub-vocalizing what Brett was writing. I didn't really get it.
Yeah, they have the horns wrapped around their head, so every one of their dreams is significant because it comes through the gate of horn.
Yeah.
He says, okay, then horns are like fingernails and ivory is like teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Since we're talking about random things right now in the tangent cube, I just have this one random thing. I was looking
Yes?
I was just doing a little more research on sacred geometry and listening to Randall Carlson lectures and stuff.
Random Randall Carlson.
Random Randall Carlson. And talking about precession, you know, of the equinoxes or whatever, this reverse wobble supposedly happens. For some reason, it made me think of a string vibrating like a guitar string, and I've noticed that when you strike a guitar string, like when you're looking at it, you'll see it get wide and then it gets narrow and then it gets wide because you can't actually see it moving. You just right? And I thought it's probably actually not moving back and forth, but actually going in an ellipse.
Yeah.
Right. And then the ellipse that
is also
widening.
rotating.
Yeah, but in reverse, so it's precessing.
Right.
So I tried to look this up on Google about like the precession of a vibrating string or elliptical motion of a vibrating string. And I ended up finding a article, like a scientific paper that I couldn't get to because
Of a paywall.
yeah, but it was 2018 and the abstract was like talking about how all of the research or most of the research and the way we're taught about vibrating strings in school and all this kind of stuff is only focused on like the mathematics
Two-dimensional? Oh.
yeah,
Yeah.
two-dimensional and all this stuff, and it's like, but this new research and actual like machines that are observing the actual practice or what am I trying to say? Like the actual string vibrating, not
Right.
looking at it conceptually on paper, but the real thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's actually going in an elliptical motion and has a precession involved.
Yeah.
And it was 2018,
Wow.
like this paper where they're like doing all this research on, and it was like, you thought there was nothing left to learn about vibrating strings.
You're like, no, I thought there was. This is why I'm here.
But I couldn't get the article. But yeah, I was wondering
Well,
about the ratio to the frequency of the vibration.
yeah.
Like, so the ellipse is happening. How many times does it go back and forth before it makes a full precession?
Yeah, I think I'm just totally loose guidance, but I would correlate it because, like, I think that it would probably be similar to, like, so if you have a top or anything you spin, you get that top spinning and it's like spinning perfectly, and then you flick it, it will begin to wobble, and the wobble is a precession of it's going backwards based on its actual rotation direction.
Right.
Right. So if you flick it, it'll start wobbling.
Because it's like the angular momentum is pushing it away from that point, and so it's moving backwards all the time.
Yeah. And it will do it. I bet you. And it like there will be a correlation to its like
Velocity.
RPM.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like with the vibrating string, it would be
It'd be a correlation to its back and forth. Yeah.
right, and the frequency of the vibration. So I wonder if it correlates to like our
Yes.
I'm sure it does.
revolution,
Yeah.
or our rotation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure it does.
That would be one way to figure out if it's just the Earth doing it, or is it the entire solar system? Right, because the solar system itself might have, like, if you compared it to the rotation of the Earth,
Yeah.
and it was like far too large. Right?
Oh,
Like,
okay.
the ratio was
I
way,
see.
way too big. If there is some constant,
Okay.
right, then you could say, well, maybe it's the solar system then, because it takes way too freaking long.
I think it has to do with it may. I don't know if it'd be considered a constant, but it would have to do with the mass and the RPMs, right?
There are a bunch of constants,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. So you get all these different things, and then you figure out, like,
What would be the period,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that would be interesting.
That is a good idea.
I should send those jackasses an email and just be like, hey, give me that paper. I'm trying to figure out some give
me that paper.
Snake Bros, give me the paper.
Give me that cord.
All right, we gotta take a break.
Yeah, we're gonna take a break. We'll come back. Talk about some
Underworld.
real subjects. Give me that paper. Tangential utterances from the forked tongues of beings with no appendages.
Brothers of the Serpent Podcast returns.
That was good timing.
What's up? Yeah.
With no appendages.
That's right. Snakes.
Worms? Oh.
Talking shit.
All right, so last week we were going through Underworld and we were talking about the Maldives, but I have this. He does all this diving at Yonaguni in Japan, and we've talked about this site before, but there's lots of interesting details here.
And if you want to get more details, step 1, steal Underworld. Step 2,
Step 3, understanding Yonaguni. Okay. So we start out here. Dr. Kimura, okay, and this is the chief. This is the guy who in Japan who's done all this. He's the main guy who's done all the diving and stuff on the. He takes his students down there, and he's been looking at it for 10 years or something like that. Okay, so the doyen of the group, and in my view, the hero of the Yonaguni saga for his determination, persistence, and refreshingly open-minded intellectual approach, is Dr. Masaki Kimura, professor of marine geology at the University of Ryukyus in Okinawa. He and his students have completed hundreds of dives around the main terrace monument at Yonaguni as part of a long-term project in which they have thoroughly measured and mapped it, produced a three-dimensional model, taken samples of ancient algae encrusted on its walls for carbon dating, and sampled the stone from the structure itself. Professor Kimura's unequivocal conclusion, based on the scientific evidence, is that the monument is man-made and that it was hewn out of the bedrock when it still stood above sea level, perhaps as much as 10,000 years ago. The principal arguments that he puts forward in favor of the human intervention are on the record and include the following. So, these are the points that I wanted to read mainly. 1. Traces of marks that show human beings worked the stone. There are holes made by wedge-like tools called kusabi in many locations. 2. Around the outside of the loop road, which is a stone-paved pathway connecting principal areas of the main monument, there is a row of neatly stacked rocks that is a stone wall, each rock about twice the size of a person in a straight line. 3. There are traces carved along the roadway that humans conducted some form of repairs to the monument. 4. The structure is continuous from under the water to land, and evidence of the use of fire is present. 5. Stone tools are among the artifacts found underwater and on land. 6. Stone tablets with carvings that appears to be letters or symbols, such as what we know as the plus mark and a V shape, were retrieved from under the water. 7. From the waters nearby, stone tools have been retrieved. 2 are for known purposes that we can recognize, but the majority are not. 8. At the bottom of the sea, a relief carving of an animal figure was discovered on an enormous stone. 9. On the higher surface of the structure, there are several areas which slope quite steeply down towards the south. Kimura points out that deep symmetrical trenches appear on the northern elevations of these areas, which could not have been formed by any known natural processes. 10. A series of steps rises at regular intervals up the south face of the monument from the pathway at its base, 27 meters underwater, towards its summit less than 6 meters below the waves. A similar stairway is found at the monument's northern face. 11. Blocks that must necessarily have been removed, whether by natural or by human agency, in order to form the monument's impressive terraces, are not found lying in the places where they would have fallen if only gravity and natural forces were operating. Instead, they seem to have been artificially cleared away to one side, and in some cases are absent from the site entirely.
Yeah.
12. The effects of this unnatural and selective cleaning up operation are particularly evident on the rock-cut pathway, Kimura calls it the loop road, that winds around the western and southern faces of the base of the monument. It passes directly beneath the main terraces, yet is completely clear of the mass of rubble that would have had to have been removed, whether by natural or human agency, in order for the terraces to form at all.
Yeah. That sounds like solid evidence right there.
Yeah, it's pretty good evidence. Okay, so the next section I'll look at here. Okay, this is called Other Miracles. There are several other intriguing sites around Yonaguni that I was not able to show Wolf, and Wolf is a geologist who is from Germany or Austria, who is the skeptic. Like, Graham Hancock brought him specifically to be skeptical, and they dove all over the place, looked at everything. And the guy was pretty, when you read through it, they have all these, he's got all these discussions that he just put directly into the book, like, quotes them directly. And he's a good skeptic. He's not a script art. Like, he fully admits that this can't be explained, or he says that like, he sees that, like, natural processes can do these things, but having them all together is kind of out there. You know, like, this is a rare natural process, that could be done by a rare natural process, and that too, and that too, and that too, but having them all happen all at once in the same place.
It makes him skeptical that it was natural.
Yeah, but he still goes with this. He still goes with the natural hypothesis because that's his idea. But it's very interesting conversation. Anyway, so he says, I was not able to show Wolf in the time available to the U.S. in March 2001, though I do not think any of them would have changed his mind. One of these, which takes a form that some recognize as a huge rock-hewn sea turtle, stands at a depth of 12 meters on the shoulder of the main monument at a second point, approximately 150 meters east of the terraces. A second, badly damaged when Yonaguni was struck by an unusual severe series of typhoons in August and September of 2000, is found half a kilometer due east of the terraces with about 15 meters of water. Consisting of a 1-ton boulder mounted on a 10-centimeter high flat platform at the apex of an enormous rocky slab almost 3 meters high. It has all the characteristics of a classic Iwakura shrine, which is part natural and part man-made. And Iwakura is a Shinto type shrine. Very specific kind of thing that they build. So there's a big flat stone, and then there's like a very short pillar, and then there's a gigantic boulder sitting on top of that.
I cannot do that.
In some ways, it sort of represents the Sivalinga stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of. You know, it's very strange. I also thought of the Baltic Sea anomaly. Is kind of like that. It's on this, like, pillar.
Yeah.
This gigantic thing sitting on top of a pillar that's raised a little bit above the surrounding bed. Okay. So he says, as I noted in chapter 25, if this shrine were to be moved to the slopes of Mount Miwa, it would blend in seamlessly with what is already there. Two other anomalous sites are located within half a kilometer of his Seki Point, and I would also very much have liked Wolf to see them. One is the extraordinary stadium, a vast amphitheater surrounding a stone plain at a depth of 30 meters. So that's deep. Okay. The other is a second area of very large steps on a similar scale and of a similar appearance to those of the main terrace of the Seki Point, but much further out to sea in deeper water and at the bottom of a protected channel. Nor does the list of signs and wonders end here, but I think the point has been sufficiently made. Some people with good minds, among them Japanese scientists with PhDs, are adamant that what they see underwater at Yonaguni are rock-hewn structures that have been worked upon by humans and purposefully arranged. Others with equally good minds and equally good PhDs are equally adamant that they see no rock-hewn structures underwater at Yonaguni at all, only rocks. So, rocks or structures are just interesting geology, or discoveries that could fix the true origins of the Japanese civilization as far back as, in the age of the gods as the Nihongi and Kojiki themselves claim. Those are various texts. Okay. These are grave questions, and they cannot be answered at Yonaguni on the basis of available evidence. Wolf is right about that. It is just possible that the remarkable structures and objects that I showed him there underwater are all freaks of nature, which by some amazing additional improbability all happen to be gathered together in one place. But I don't think that is what they are. And I repeat that the balance of first-hand scientific opinion is, at the time of writing, 2 to 1 against which men in this matter. Kimura and Sundaresh provide 2 clear votes for the structures having been overworked by man. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this because he gets this guy Sundaresh, who is he's actually a marine archaeologist from India, who does a lot of. He's like the only archaeologist that they have working out in the bay where that city appeared when the tidal wave came. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so in like 2011 or something like that.
Take care.
I kind of vaguely remember this.
Yeah,
story,
there was
but
an earthquake, and off the coast of India, and it caused a tidal wave, like a tsunami. And first, of course, the water all pulls away, and there's this ancient city out there in the bay.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, that had been like, you know, people talked about it in legends like all this time, and like Dwarka is the name of it, I think. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, basically the water all draws away, and people could see the stone ruins out there that was under the bay the whole time.
Damn,
And of course, fishermen have known about it for forever. They're out there fishing, and their nets get caught and stuff, and they dive, and there's buildings. And they have to pull their nets off buildings or whatever. And they say that when the waves are coming in right, like at the right frequency or whatever, they hear these booming noises, like it sounds like a bell. You know, that there's still artifacts down there, maybe bells or whatever that are hanging that are like being rung by the waves if it's the right frequency, or big pieces of metal. That's what they said. It sounds like ringing or big booming sounds, like as the waves come through. Yeah. So this guy, Sundaresh, is the head archaeologist that does all this marine diving off the coast. So let me pull this up when he's talking about it, because he has this whole list.
So he's been diving out there like ever since they saw that with the tsunami. They've been studying it, or
Yeah, they've been studying a bunch of different things. Yeah, and like at the beginning of this book, Graham Hancock goes diving with him all over the place. And there's actually, if anybody's interested, there's a documentary that he does called Underworld, which that Graham Hancock does about this. So if you don't have time to read the book or whatever, you can go find the documentary Underworld and watch it. I found it on YouTube in 3 parts, but you can go watch it, and like he's giving you images of the dives and stuff and talking about when they go to Indonesia and Japan. It's pretty cool. So all during this book, he's writing about, because he's got this camera crew following him around for making that documentary, right? And so a lot of the places they go to is paid for by this channel that's like taking him on these dives or whatever. So it's pretty cool. That's why they go to Malta. He almost dies in Malta. They try to dive and find this temple that this guy knew about that was first seen by an Air Force guy who was flying over the island and saw it under the water. And they go out there to dive, and they get lost, and then like the storm picks up, and they come up, and they're like nowhere near the boat, and the waves are all. It's like we're all gonna die. It's pretty good book. Let's see. Where does he go? Okay, so he goes through shock. Shock totally thinks it's natural. Which is interesting. Okay, here it is. The one archaeologist. So one archaeologist has dived at Yonaguni and studied its underwater structures firsthand. Others in his profession who have commented have done so from their desks after browsing through photographs or looking at videotapes. As is the case with the armchair geologists, their opinions can only be of limited value until they have dived there themselves. By contrast, the opinion of the only experienced marine archaeologist in the world who has ever dived at Yonaguni must count for a great deal more. That archaeologist, whose official report is reproduced in part below, is Sundaresh from the National Institute of Oceanography in Goa, India. The reader will recall that we dived with him and other NIO archaeologists at Dwarka in March 2000 and again at Pumpur, I'm not going to say it, in February 2001. Between these expeditions in India, Sundaresh participated with us in an expedition to Yonaguni in September 2000 that had been supported once again, as had Robert Schoch's visit in September 1997 by the Seamen's Club. There's a club in Japan that has like some wealthy people basically taking them all come with this thing. It's pretty cool. Yeah, straight to pyramids.
Pyramid scheme.
Also participating in the September 2000 expedition was Kimiya Hama, a businessman from Hokkaido, whose firm owns 2 very useful high-tech ROVs, which are remotely operated vehicles, for unmanned exploration in water too deep to be readily reached by divers. So that an effective search for further structures around Yonaguni could be mounted in the short time available, Hama had brought one of the ROVs with him and also an expert team of support staff and technical divers. This is awesome. Because it is a unique document of reference, he seen so far, and the first and only evaluation of a wide range of Yonaguni underwater structures by a marine archaeologist, I reproduce below several sections from Sundaresh's expedition report. Some of the specific submerged sites that we visited with Sundaresh during the expedition are not yet familiar to the reader from the brief account given in chapters 1 and 25, but will be described shortly. So, he says, Introduction. Yonaguni is the most southwestern island of Japan and closest to Taiwan, which are about 69 nautical miles away. The island is almond-shaped with 10 kilometers length from east to west and 4 kilometers width from north to south. The international expedition was organized,
down or
so on and so
die.
forth. Background information of the area. Underwater mass
Don't do
structures
that.
were found initially by Mr. Aratake, a local resident of Yonaguni Island during 1986. He named this point as Iseki Point, which means Monument Point. He was looking for hammerhead shark schooling around the island when a massive man-made underwater structure was noticed at a depth of 30 meters. This was his first discovery. Later, more monuments were found by Aratake and other divers in nearby Takami and Palace areas. Okay. 2 boats were chartered for explorations off Yonaguni Water from September 2002. Okay, so let's get past this. Terrace structure and canal. A large terrace structure of about 250 meters long. God. And 25 meters in height was studied south of the Arakabana headland. Known locally as Iseki Point, the terrace structure is bound to the northern side of an elongated, approximately east-west trending structure, designated by Professor Masaki Kimura as an approach road. But our observation of the proposed road-like structure suggests that it is more likely to be a canal. The overall width of the terrace structure is around 100 meters. From each of the terraces, a staircase leads downwards to the canal or road. The length of the canal appears to be more than 250 meters long, while the canal has a width of 25 meters. The purpose or utility of this canal structure is intriguing. Our observation all along the canal indicates that the western end of the structure begins underwater, opening away from the terrace structure into the open sea. The width, height, and terraced northern side of the canal force us to suggest that the canal structure might have served as a channel for small boats communicating with the Arakawabana headland. The southern natural outcrop wall probably had provided a buffer wall for strong open sea waves. This interpretation appears quite reasonable because the height of the southern wall of natural outcrop and the northern terraced wall are nearly the same. The terraces and attached staircases might have been used for handling, loading, and unloading boats and sailing through the channel. Thus, it appears in all probability that the terrace structure and canal might have served as a jetty before submergence to present depth.
But this is not like cut straight out of the rock.
Yeah,
or
it's a
it
rock
is.
cut.
It's
yeah.
rock cut.
Yeah.
So they're not seeing.
But there is a wall that's been built out of giant megalithic blocks, too.
Okay, so they are seeing like joints in the stone.
Yes, so most of what they're calling the monument is not a stacked thing. It is a rock cut thing. It's giant, like these giant terrace steps, each one 2 or 3 times as tall as a person. You can find these on pictures, and I'll post them on the show notes. But like the most striking aspects of the Yonaguni Monument are these enormous stepped things that they're calling terraces. But there's this canal that goes all the way around the quote-unquote monument. And like to me, if you like go look at any harbor that we have today, it's concrete and rock and all this stuff. And if you just like removed all the buildings, you would look like this. You'd have these giant stepped features that go down into the water, you know, and then there would be these weird indentations and other things, places where there were huge structures for moving large loads. You know, massive cranes that move large loads or whatever. They've got these big pockets in the concrete that we make that where it's all bolted in and held together. And so if you took all the metal and all the building and everything out and just left this big concrete thing, our harbors would look a lot like this. Except that they cut theirs directly out of the rock.
And there are like what he was saying, those like holes or whatever that are cut into them.
Exactly. So there's these deep holes cut into it, and it's when you look at the 3D model that Professor Kimura built, I can put a picture of this in the show notes too. It shows a lot more detail than you can ever see in underwater pictures, because of course underwater you can't see very far. You know, at any given time, even with the best visibility underwater in the ocean, you're not going to see more than 10 meters maybe. You know, 30 feet. It's just too. Yeah. So the watcher posted a picture of it here, so you can see how it's got these steps, but then there are these giant terraces too.
Yeah.
and it looks like a harbor side. There's all this complex stuff happening near where the water is.
Yeah.
Like
You can imagine the National Geographic like recreation of it with
All
like
people
little
butt
grass
flaps.
huts and people with butt flaps on all the different terraces and stuff.
yeah, exactly.
They cut all this rock out so they can put their grass huts on top.
Right.
Of it. And walk around in butt flaps and go fishing with wooden spears.
Exactly. Yeah. It's also interesting that it talks about the stone tools. So, like, I would say that it's possible that the grass huts and butt flaps may have happened, but that this is actually from a much, much more ancient high civilization.
Yeah.
And that later on, before the sea level rose, but after the first cataclysm, right, or after whatever that wiped it out, like there's people still using this, you know, but because like everywhere else you have cliffs going down into the water, so this
Yeah.
would make a good access to the sea, you know. So there may actually have been grass huts and butt flaps people on it at some point,
Yeah.
because they're finding these stone tools that, you know, and now a bunch of them, they say that they don't know what they're for, but they're chipped, you know, flint tools.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so obviously they didn't use those chipped flint tools to cut that rock.
Yeah.
But somebody that used chipped flint tools lived in that area after that rock was made, after those cuts were made by somebody else.
Yeah. Before the sea rose and
Right.
swallowed it all up.
Yeah, and so you can see in the back there, that's part of the canal.
Yeah.
Right, where you get in there and you're protected from the big waves coming off the ocean. You know, and there's probably you can see the canal going all the way across the back. So.
Yeah.
And there's probably some kind of dry dock set
And
up
I remember
too.
looking at pictures of this. And it's another one of those things that looked like somebody was just playing with
Yeah.
the shamir. And it was-
Right, like what are those sideways steps? Like, why are those there?
Sound baffling.
Sometimes longheads could walk on the sides of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But so this doesn't show some of the other interesting, like, so there are these things where they call these like giant monument heads. Like there's a huge thing that looks like a face. Okay. And it's kind of on one of these plateaus or whatever. And then there's other things that look like enormous standing stones that have cut down between them. You know, like you would watch the equinox sun come up in it. And I've never been able to find out if it's aimed in the right direction for that. But of course, it would probably be hard to tell now because it's been underwater and being beaten by waves and stuff.
What is this arch gate that's all the way down at the bottom of it?
That's actually a tunnel that goes underneath the thing. It's a cave. They're calling it a cave, but it actually goes inside of it, and there's interior spaces in there. Yeah. Now that was a long time ago. Like you can see the depth there. That's 27 meters down.
Yeah.
I mean, 27 meters is what? 90 feet? It's close to 90 feet. I mean, 30 meters is basically 90 feet-ish.
That's just making me think of so many of these crazy, massive, ancient structures are built on top of straight water features. And
Yeah, that's true.
so it's like that tunnel is made for the water or something.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But 90 feet is... I mean, the sea level was 400 feet.
Right, yeah, it would have been on top.
Yeah. So, let's go through more of Cinderesh's description here. Okay. Yeah. Monolith, human head. A large monolith that looks like a human head with 2 eyes and a mouth was studied at Tatagami Iwa Point. A human-cut large platform in the same monolith extends outwards at the base of the head. So, you know, you've got a giant head sitting on this huge stone platform that comes off the chin and sticks out in front of it. Approachway leads to this platform from the shore side. The surrounding basal platform is quite large, about 2,500 meters squared, and could easily have accommodated more than 2,000 persons sitting down. The human head and associated platform of an approach road are suggestive of an area of worship or community gatherings.
Stand down or die.
Underwater cave area. Diving operations revealed caves at 8 to 10 meters water depth at the palace area. The entry to these caves was possibly only through the large 1 meter radius holes on the cave roof. Inside the cave, a boulder of about 1 meter in diameter, engraved with carvings, was observed. So you have this big, this big, round bubble cave that has a hole in the ceiling. You come down through it, and there's a giant, monolith in the middle of it. And it's got carvings all over it.
That's freaking awesome.
At about 100 meters towards the eastern side of the caves, more rock engravings were noticed on the bedrock. These rock engravings are believed to be man-made. Once upon a time, these caves were probably on the land and were later submerged. The rock engravings inside the cave and on the bedrock were probably carved out by means of a tool of some sort. However, it is very difficult to say that these are rock art of this or that period or a script. Okay, 5.4 Megalith's Point. Diving operations revealed 2 big rectangular blocks measuring 6 meters in height each, about 2.5 meters in width, and 4.9 meters thickness, which have been located towards the western side of the Seki Point. These rectangular blocks are designated by Japanese workers as megaliths. These blocks have been located in between 2 natural rock outcroppings. The approachway to these megaliths is through a tunnel measuring about 3 meters long, 1 meter high, and 1 meter in width. So you have to swim up to them, and then it opens up, and there's these 2 giant standing stones in between, these natural cliffs. So it's down. You're down in this like a
trench,
trench or a canyon, yeah. The shape, size, and positioning of these megaliths suggest that they are man-made. It is believed that the people of Japan's extremely ancient Jomon culture used to worship stones, rocks. Let's see. In light of this practice, it may be worthwhile to suggest that these megaliths might have been used as objects of worship. However, a thorough investigation in this regard is necessary before assigning a definite person to these megaliths. So those are the ones that I'm talking about that have the thin line between them. And they look really, they're very similar in shape and size, but they're mirror images of each other. That's the other interesting thing about it. They're facing each other, and then they're kind of this sort of mirror image. Let's see. Conclusion. The terrace structures of the canal are undoubtedly man-made, built by cutting existing huge monolithic outcrops. The rectangular terrace structure and canal probably served as a jetty for handling, loading, and unloading small boats before it submerges to the present depth. The monolith, rock-cut human head, and associated platform might have served as an area of worshiping or community gatherings. That's in Sundaresh's paper. The only marine archaeologist who's ever looked at the site, and that's his opinion. Unequivocal. So Graham Hancock says, the score so far. By my count, so far, I have 1 marine archaeologist, Sundaresh, who is convinced that the Yonaguni structures are undoubtedly man-made, and who represents 100% of all the archaeologists who have ever dived there at the time of the writing. I also have 1 marine geologist, Masaki Kimura, who believes the same thing, a second geologist, Robert Schock, who is undecided, and a third, Wolf Wichman, who is convinced that they are natural. I decided when I got the opportunity that I should try to dive at Yonaguni with Wichman and see if I could change his mind. And so then he goes into this whole back and forth with him and this guy. And it's some of it's pretty interesting. Let's see if I can pull up some of what he says.
And so he did this underworld after
he wrote Fingerprints.
Oh, okay, but before Magicians.
Long before, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, this is around 2000, right?
I get it.
Yeah. So it was after Fingerprints of the Gods that you realized that, wait, if we're going to be looking for this lost civilization, it's going to be underwater because it was before the end of the Ice Age, so he needs to dive. And he went to do research about it and found out that nobody's looking underwater. So there are marine archaeologists. The vast majority of them, except for Sundaresh, look for shipwrecks. That's all they do. So almost 100% of marine archaeology is focused on shipwrecks.
Shame.
Yeah. Now, we've gone looking for Indian mounds. Imagine trying to find something like that in the ocean.
Yeah.
It'd be impossible.
I was wondering about LiDAR under the ocean. We should be able to filter out the lasers that reflect off the surface, and then the ones that penetrate down, and still be able to use it.
Yeah, or just use under submersibles.
Submersibles,
that do it. Yeah. And then you've got like fish in your picture.
I had this really, yeah, I had this really great picture in my mind of like the day when Google Earth has incorporated the LiDAR map of the entire surface of the planet.
Yeah, they put up a
including the
LiDAR
ocean.
satellite and just.
Dude, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like that day will come, like when you'll be able to just scan
Stand down.
the LiDAR
Yeah.
point cloud of
Yeah.
the entire surface of the planet.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long time from now, but
Well, maybe not so long.
they did it with satellites, or they did it with photography.
Yeah. And maybe not so long. I know that Gordon White has talked about, like, he works in high-tech business, right? That's his, like, he's the chaos magician, but his
Yeah.
other life is high-tech business, and he's talked about how he has friends who, you know, have been doing this mapping of the ocean floors using lasers. And he says, he's like, they've gone to various people, didn't specify who, and said, like, what is this? And what's that? You know? So they found interesting things down there, but nobody is releasing the information yet. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's because it's proprietary.
Well,
it's
I
very
figured
expensive.
like that's gonna happen first, right? Like the people that paid to get this done are going to go and try to find all the buried treasure and all the sunken treasure and everything first before they just publish all the results.
Well,
for everybody free for all.
I think, I can't say this for sure, but I think that I get the idea that, okay, I can't say it that way. Like, I'm almost positive that most of this is being paid for by large energy companies because they're the ones that need this data.
Okay.
And we know that on land, large energy companies are, like, let's say that they're somewhere in the jungle. They've been given a grant by a government from some South American country to go to this certain area to do oil well drilling or oil exploration, and then they find a temple. They're kind of reluctant to tell anybody because they'll get their grant taken away. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they destroy it. Sometimes they have done that, right? They have destroyed it. But a lot of times they don't say anything until they're done getting the resources that they're getting there, and then they'll release it or whatever. And I think that's what's happening, is like large energy companies that have been pushed offshore for whatever reason are paying for these very complex, very intricate mapping of the seafloor to be done. And if they find something, they're probably not going to want to talk
cannot
about it if
do
that's in
that.
the area that they want to do oil exploration or
Yeah.
whatever, or natural gas or whatever. And, you know, I don't think they're going to just destroy it, especially if it's underwater.
Yeah,
No one's
yeah.
going to see it. But they're probably not going to talk about it until, because if they do, you know, the government's all come in and say you can't do this here, you know?
Right.
Like, so
I cannot do that.
I don't know what will happen with that, but I know that does happen already on land a lot. So,
I mean, at first, satellite imagery was top secret.
yeah.
You know, and now you can go scan the whole surface of the globe, right?
Yeah,
And
you're
it's
right.
Not current. It's not.
You're right.
Like
Yeah.
the real-time satellite imagery is probably still.
Yeah, you're right. And so in a way, you're also pointing out that the navies of the world probably have a lot more information about this stuff than the private organizations. Because the navies are down in the submarines scanning everything all the time.
Yeah.
You need to know. You don't want to run into a pyramid with your submarine.
Right, but are they really like mapping the seafloor with LiDAR? Like, I don't know, maybe.
Well, I mean, like,
Do you think it could be done from a satellite?
I don't know. Probably. I'm sure. Well, here's the thing. Light doesn't go through water very well, and seawater is even worse. And there are places. I know that there's a certain depth that once you get down there, it's pitch black. Like no sunlight has ever penetrated to that depth. You know, so
But if you amplify the light by stimulating emissions of radiation,
maybe. And I'm sure that there's certain frequencies that penetrate far better than
yeah.
like visible light. Probably doesn't do it. You know, I don't know. Like okay, so I know that to communicate really well with submarines that are deep, they have to use ELF, right? like extremely low frequency radio,
Yeah.
which has a very low bandwidth because it's such low frequency, right? So, like, you can send them a message, but a very short message takes a long time to send. Because you're like... It's like whales talking, right? So maybe low frequency, I mean, like, it would be the same way. You're basically using some kind of radar, like ELF, that'll penetrate the water to the depth. I don't know if lasers will do it because those are extremely high frequency usually.
But in the shallow waters,
Yeah.
like offshore, that are 400 feet down, you know.
Right. Then you have particulates, you know, like anything floating is going to reflect instead of...
But that's what I'm saying. They can like do this over a jungle canopy and
Yeah.
just like cancel out these.
Right, because the wind moves the leaves enough to where
Yeah.
you can eventually see the ground. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm just hoping that it can be done. Because
Yeah. I'm sure it can. It just may take longer. You know, you put something in there and, like, it'll... The other thing is it has to come back. That's the other thing about... You know, there has to be a sensor that can see the laser hitting the thing that...
right.
You know.
So you're probably right. They would need to do it with submersibles, but
Yeah.
hopefully it happens.
Well, I know that they're doing it in some cases, but it's
cannot
usually
do that.
boats dragging centrifuges, you know,
Yeah.
behind them. And they do a side scanning.
down or
The
die.
side scan can be, like anything else, you can zoom out or zoom in. So if they have the sensor package up high and it's just like putting out a broad, you know, and it's side scan, so it's off to the side of the boat, whatever. So they do a broad thing, but it's not as detailed. Whereas you sink it down low and you do a narrow band, you get a much more detailed, but it's like 10 feet wide. You know, and you go right past the giant pyramid and don't see it.
That's right.
So they will normally do a big wide swath of it, and then if they see interesting things, they'll focus down on that and do a small grid. But yeah, it's still, I don't know. There's maybe we'll have some kind of breakthrough. There's always a
cannot do
breakthrough.
that.
Like, people need to know what the bottom of the ocean looks like, and like I said, Gordon White has talked about. He's got people. He knows people in high tech that are developing these technologies and their services are being purchased by large companies who want to know what's on the bottom of the oceans because they're trying to do something. And it's not just oil. Like if you think about it, the seabed is a lot closer to a lot of resources in terms of minerals. You know, like you've got like. So if you can figure out what's down there geologically, you know, it's diamonds and gold, man. I mean, you can go after anything. So. Yeah. All right, so we're going to take another break, and we'll come back with the second half of the show. Investigating ancient mysteries until there is nothing left of us but two skeletons stuck on spikes in an ancient tomb and a mummified longhead in space. Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
Nothing but shed skins.
That's right. Okay, so I have one other part I want to read in this in Underworld here, and he's talking about Taiwan now. So he's talking about the Taiwan flood stories. Okay, he says, "I will not delay the reader with lengthy quotations from the very many Taiwanese flood myths that were collected from amongst the indigenous population, primarily by Japanese scholars in the 19th and earlier 20th centuries. Typically, they tell a story of a warning from the gods, the sound of thunder in the sky, terrifying earthquakes, the pouring down of a wall of water which engulfs mankind, and the survival of a remnant who had either fled to a mountaintops or had floated to safety on some sort of improvised vessel. To provide just one example from the Ami tribe of central Taiwan, we hear how the four gods of the sea conspired with two gods of the land, Kabet and Akka, to destroy mankind. The gods of the sea warned Kabet and Akka, in 5 days, when the round moon appears, the sea will make a booming sound. Then escape to a mountain where there are stars. Kabit and Akka heeded the warning immediately and fled to the mountain, and when they reached the summit, the sea suddenly began to make the sound and rose higher and higher. All the lowland settlements were inundated, but 2 children, Sura and Nakao, were not drowned. For when the flood overtook them, they embarked in a wooden mortar which chanced to be lying in front of their house, and in that frail vessel they floated safely to the Ragasan mountain. So here, handed down since time immemorial by Taiwanese headhunters, we have the essence of the story of Noah's Ark, which is also the story of Manu and the story of Sisudra, and with astonishingly minor variations, the story of all the deluge, escapees, and survivors in all the world. At some point, a real investigation should be mounted into why it is that furious tribes of archaeologists, ethnologists, and anthropologists continue to describe the similarities amongst these myths of earth-destroying floods as coincidental, rooted in exaggeration, etc., and thus irrelevant as historical testimony. This is contrary to reason when we know that over a period of roughly 10,000 years between 17,000 and 7,000 years ago, more than 25 million square kilometers of the Earth's surface were inundated. The flood epoch was a reality, and in my opinion, since our ancestors went through it, it is not surprising that they told stories and bequeathed to us their shared memories of it. As well as continuing to unveil it through sciences like inundation mapping and paleoclimatology, therefore, I suggest that if we want to learn what the world was really like during the meltdown, we should listen to the myths.
Yeah. Dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So, he also goes through and he describes all these stone circles. So, like, you go up into the high places of Japan, and you find these ancient Shinto, like these Shinto shrines, right? And then there's other ones that just nobody knows what they are. They're these, like, I have some pictures of it. Well, I used to have pictures of them. I lost them. But there's these crazy rock cut things that just, all these weird pathways and things cut in the rock. Like it almost looks like a crop circle, but it's cut in stone, right? And they're not circular, but it has the same sort of geometric, like these sharp lines, and then, you know, deep cuts or cups or whatever that are cut into the rock, and it's just all over the place. Like somebody was doing metallurgy, or, you know, that's what I thought of was metallurgy. Like you've got these troughs and things cut in stone, and molten metal is going down them. So that brings me to another subject that I've been wanting to discuss, and that is the Plain of Jars in Laos.
Oh, yeah.
In Cambodia. So I've been thinking about this because I've spent hours and hours like looking at this place, and I'm just like, what is this? Why are there thousands of gigantic stone jars here? Like, what is this for? And in a recent show, we were talking about keystone cuts and people pouring molten metal into these things, and I'm like, that's what those stone jars were for, maybe. Like they're like a crucible.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of, the freaking word, man. Yeah, those stone jars that you put hot metal in.
Yeah, it's a crucible.
Yeah.
But they're enormous. Like,
Right.
they're too big.
Machines would have to carry them around.
Right.
It's like,
And then they're all dropped in this one spot. Like,
yeah, that's really strange.
it's very weird. And of course, I mean, I'm sure that every Snake Bros listener can guess what the standard model explanation of these is for, is what it is.
Burials.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're jar tubes. And it's the same story. They find...
I know. Is that where the phrase mason jar came from?
Yes!
Ba-da-doom. Classic dad joke.
That was actually not a cricket joke. That was pretty funny. I thought it was funny. Mason jars. Jars made out of stone. By masons. But yeah, they're really big, and of course, like, so they find like a mummified body in one of them, and they're like, clearly these were all tombs, like all freaking 20,000 of these jars that are out here, even though none of the rest of them have any corpses in them.
Yeah. And what was with the skeleton? A butt flap? and a few rudimentary stone tools.
Right. That he clearly did not make that jar with.
That's right.
So in the pictures, and one thing that's difficult about the plane of jars is that it's a minefield. Like literally, there are thousands of still buried mines that are out there that are live.
Unexploded ordnance.
Yes, and so people get killed in that area. Yeah. And I can't remember which war it was from, but it was some war, and they just went out there and just planted mines all over the place, and they're still killing people to this day. So you can't really go out there and. I mean, there's some areas where they've made it safe, but you can't look at most of the pictures of the jars are from far away because you can't just go walking out among them or you're gonna die.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Or destroy the jars. One of
Right. Right. Yeah. Yep. So I don't know what that's all about. It's weird. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there was a good reason for it militarily at the time, but I just can't imagine.
I just need to take John Tyke's like massive vibrating roller thing out there and just like get nearby and just
And blow up all the jars.
all right, safe to go out there now.
Yeah. Now.
You're gonna be okay.
I love it. I've blown up 40 mines. So most of the jars have these. They have these like a narrow lid, right? So the jar itself has this like very like think of it as like a vase, so it's shaped more like basins. So it's got this narrow lip part that's 3 or 4 inches high, and it's straight up and down. It's like cylindrical, and there's a hole in that. But then right after the lip, it gets real wide. Right? It like widens out, and then it has this long tapering shape.
The ones I remember seeing were like wide open mouths at the top.
Right. I'm saying that it's like some of them are like that, but most of them have this weird tapering shape. But yeah, some of them are round.
Yeah.
And some of them have a big open mouth. Most of the mouths are large.
That's what I mean.
The jar itself.
Oh, it's way bigger. Okay.
Yeah, it has this like a very difficult shape to carve if you're doing it by hand. But and some of them are enormous. They weigh many. I don't know what the weights are. I couldn't find that information, but they weigh many tons. Nobody's moved them. Like I'll say
Right.
that. Like I mean, of course, they're surrounded by mines, but like even the ones that aren't,
They're too big.
yeah, they're very large. Some of them have been broken by giant trees growing through them. There's one you can see, and it's like all caught up in the roots of this huge tree. That's obviously like many hundreds of years old. They think the jars are relatively young, but they're heavily eroded.
They're from the Secret War.
The mines.
Yeah. Which is the name of the
Laotian
Civil War in the late 50s. Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah. So, the other weird thing about the plane of jars, and I don't know what this is exactly, but if you're looking at the area on Google Earth, and this confused me for a long time because I wasn't sure what I was looking at. But I looked at pictures of them, go through Google image search and plane of jars, and you find all these pictures of jars. And then I was trying to find the area on Google Earth. I'm like, what does the landscape look like? What are we dealing with here? And there's jars in the landscape. Like, they look like giant petroglyphs. And I never was able to figure out what those are. So, like
drawn from the side or something?
yes. And there's just thousands of them. Now, they're way bigger than the actual jars themselves.
Right.
So when you're looking down from Google Earth, you see all these jar shapes, like in the land. Like there's green grass everywhere. It's like these rolling plains, but there's these sandy or white or stone something.
So that's like a later culture
I
that
have
didn't
no
understand
idea.
the jars, like started making
Maybe.
or it was like, the butt flappers.
Yeah.
And the gods had come down and they made all the jars. And so as cargo called, they're like, we'll draw jars. Like, the jars are here.
Yeah.
Come back here this way.
See the good jars. The other thing I thought was I mean, I couldn't tell what they were, but I mean, they're clearly jar-shaped and they're in the land, but I couldn't tell exactly what they were. I was like, maybe these are places where they've been clearing mines out, digging them up. I don't know. It's hard to tell what they are, but they're all over the place. Like, there's all these little bodies of water, and there's just these jar shapes facing, all the mouths facing the water, all around it.
Oh, dude, that's cool.
Yeah. So I don't know what that's about, and really no one has ever explained. There's no explanation for the jars themselves, you know.
And they're made out of granite and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're made out of many different materials: basalt, granite,
But the hard stone.
and there's some limestone ones. But you can see, like, the erosion.
They would be all over.
Yeah, the erosion is so heavy on them. They're deeply pitted, and there's like runs, you know, where water's been running down the side, and there's like massive lichen, you know, the stone lichen that takes thousands of years to grow. There's huge circles of it on them. But again, not much study can be done because of the problem of the mines.
I cannot
So-
do that.
Yeah, like I'm still waiting for somebody to go in there and clean all that up. I don't know how to do it. It would be a pretty big effort. I think there's thousands. I mean, it's so
It's
dangerous.
not known
Yeah,
how many there are.
you're right. The military that put them there does not exist anymore. Like you know, Civil War. So, I mean, you can imagine if, like, in the American Civil War, if the South had, like, if we had mine technology at the time and they had mined enormous areas, and then, like, their government's destroyed and all the records are burned and everything because they're losing, and then, like, how would nobody would know where the mines were.
Man, that's crazy, dude.
You know? So, and I also wonder if there's other things nearby. I haven't been able to figure that out either. Like, those things can't stand alone. Like,
Right, there has to be something else, like some.
like, what were they for? You know, like, what were they doing? Somebody was doing.
Where's the quarry?
Right. Somebody did, like, an enormous amount of work to make these things. And, like, the standard model is that these stones were all sitting in the hillside, and they just carved them in situ. Like, you know, you're just like, I don't think that's what happened. Like,
Oh, that's what they think.
yeah. I mean, because moving around is.
It was just a boulder field, and they just
Yeah.
carved all the boulders.
Right.
And then there's all different types of
Right.
stone.
Yeah. And they find a body in one or two of them, and they think they're all tombs.
Yeah, it's like that site that has the big towers in Peru or somewhere. They're all up on the hill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The chalupas? The cholpas, yeah.
Yeah, the chulpas. yeah.
Like, they're like called chalupas or something like that.
Yeah, all those big towers, and
Yeah.
and they found some people buried in some of them, and they're like, oh, they're all tombs.
Right.
Same deal.
Yeah. When there's the incredibly crappy, like, stone ramp going up to the top of the tower so that they could put the bodies into it, and the tower is built beautifully, and the ramp itself is, like, leaning against the tower to be supported. And you're like, no, it's obvious that the people who built that ramp are the ones putting the bodies in it, because there's no door at the bottom. You can't get into it, and whoever built that ramp did not build that tower.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, and those, you know, those things are, now that I think of it, they're similar in shape in some ways to those jars in Laos.
So this
They have the
like-
same lip at the top and stuff.
it goes back to the whole. Again, I keep bringing up this idea of the time capsule. Earth is the library, right?
Oh, yeah.
The Akashic records, and,
Yeah.
and we have this tradition, this ancient tradition, where things are buried
Right.
to be preserved. And then the legitimate ones that were actually made to contain records and knowledge were built out of megalithic architecture and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And then these things were buried in there.
Yeah.
And so the tradition was like set, right? And now
Yes.
people find, like, say, tribe moves into an area and they start finding these massive stone structures. Well, they're going to bury themselves in them because somewhere in their mythology or whatever their oral tradition, they have this memory
Yeah.
of this is what happens here. Like, these things are preserved, like the story is preserved in stone.
Or this is how you associate yourself with the gods.
Right. I was trying to say that without saying it, right?
I gotcha. Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But yeah.
Yeah, intrusive burials. Like, I had a friend who...
I'm trying to give a reason why we're burying ourselves intrusively into these stone structures. Like,
Yeah.
there's got to be another reason than just somebody decided to build a massive stone structure and bury themselves in it.
Right. Yeah. That's not what's happening.
That was the first copycat.
Yeah.
That was really wanting to associate themselves with whatever tradition that was before.
Yeah. Like the mastabas. The mini pyramids. All around
Exactly.
there. Yeah.
And the great, the big pyramids didn't have burials in them. They buried other things.
Yeah. Right. The knowledge of the
cannot
gods
do
or whatever.
that.
Whatever you would call it. They buried this and like what's also interesting is like the treasure. It's always referred to as treasure or whatever, but so often you find out that what these really ancient people meant by treasure was knowledge, not necessarily gold and
Yeah.
jewels. Now there might
The
be
gold was imperishable, so it was used to
Right.
contain the knowledge.
right. Gold books.
Using symbols.
Yeah. I was talking to Dad about, like, the idea of metal books. And like, if we were gonna do this today, like what would we do? Like buying a bunch of gold and hammering out in a place would be really expensive. Doing something else, like lead. You could hammer lead out, but I don't know if lead's imperishable like gold is.
It corrodes.
Yeah.
A little bit of acid rain and it'll just bubble up.
Don't do that.
If only we could figure out how to make symbols in mercury.
My book evaporated.
With matte.
But that brings me to another thing. I was thinking about the Grail. That's right.
It's like,
We're seeking a stone Grail. Oh, we've already got
cannot do
10,000 in the plane over there. Can't get to him at the moment.
You cannot do that.
No, but seriously, like there's the whole tradition of the Grail and all this. I really want to be a Grail seeker. Okay, I just decided. Like
Yeah.
that's gonna be
A
one
Grail
of my
night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start looking for it. But the first thing that really got me thinking like, okay, wait, there's more to it.
You cannot.
The plasma forms
yeah.
are Grail shaped.
Right. There's just giant grail-shaped beacons.
Yeah. And I don't.
Bad, evil, naughty newt.
I'm sure somebody out there interested in it has thought of that, but I have never thought of that.
Yeah, there is a plasma form that's shaped like a cup. Yeah.
Yeah.
A chalice.
Right. It's like almost the hourglass shape, right? But that's the bottom of the cup is
Right.
The profile of it is similar.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means, but it's part of that ancient memory of what was lost.
Yeah. Yeah. Or solar storms.
Yeah.
I cannot do that.
That's like again. I'm thinking of the whole
Die.
like this idea of treasure. Okay, like let's just go with Aladdin, the Cave of Wonders, right? It's full of gold and jewels and all this stuff, but really
down.
what's important is the lamp.
Right.
And the lamp isn't particularly treasury, but it has this ancient being in it that's full of knowledge and magic. Right? And most of the treasure that's in the Cave of Wonders is actually a trap.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you watch I remember
To distract the unworthy.
Right, exactly. And if you watch the Disney version of Aladdin, when you watch it, this was interesting to me because you have this mix of Asian, like the Middle East is Asia, basically. It's like the Middle East. East is Asia, right? So there's this Asian deep mythology in there about Hanuman, the monkey god. right? Seems to me to be like a mythological representation of a type of a form of the human spirit, or maybe like what people were like before they became human. I don't know, the monkey god, right? The first man. And he, in the myth, the Chinese myth or whatever, he becomes man by first he gets up into the sky, and then the dragon there teaches him the 72 forms of transmutation. You know, and then he is called the finder of secrets after that. But if you watch this Disney Aladdin, he's got the monkey, right? He's got Abu, right? He goes down in there, and who is the one that can't not grab the giant jewel? It's the monkey, right? So Aladdin is the higher form of man.
Time.
Yes. Yeah.
Touch the young of the lamp.
And he's climbing the steps to get the lamp. And Abu is down there, and there's this big sculpture of a monkey, and it's holding this enormous ruby. Yeah. And he's like,
Stand down.
so he grabs it, and then all hell breaks loose, right? Yeah. And the whole cave starts coming apart, and they have to use carpet to get out of there. So
Flying tapestry.
that's right. And that has all these
cannot do
weird
that.
mythological connotations. Like, we went through this about the Solomon's, flying city,
Yeah.
or whatever, and it's like that there's reasons why it was referred to as a tapestry or a carpet.
Yeah, they said his whole city moved around
Yeah,
on
right.
basically the entire city. He could just like move it out into the desert, and then
Yeah,
the 72 demons that he had enslaved would just go like get water from wherever and
Yeah.
bring it to the city. He got tired of that place, just moved the whole thing.
yeah. So I guess what I'm pointing out is that there's all these weird connotations in these myths that talk about the treasure that's in these caves of wonders, the halls of records, right? Like if you look at all the Legends of the Metal Library, most people are concerned with the materials that these books are made of. It's made of gold. It's like these crystal things, jewels, and blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the point. Like the crystal skull. Everyone's like, this is a great treasure. It's worth all this money. I'm like, no, that thing probably holds all kinds of information.
Right.
The pyramid itself is crammed full of data in its very structure itself. Like whether it
The same thing with cathedrals. Like they're made of all the best stone and best materials and everything, and they're beautiful.
Yeah, and there's gold inlays and all kinds of.
Right.
I mean, you go in there, and some of them, like in Rome, Italy, they have these enormous gold crosses with jewels and everything. But
Yeah.
but there's this knowledge that's embedded in all this stuff.
Right.
So the treasure itself is,
Yeah, it's like the casing stones on the Great Pyramid were made out of the best limestone, and they were polished, and
yeah,
there are legends that every one of them was completely covered in hieroglyphs.
yeah,
So the whole exterior of that 13-acre structure was
a book.
a library,
Yeah.
basically. And instead of gaining the knowledge from what was written, they took the stones to rebuild Cairo after an earthquake.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got the materials. They took the gold, and thus they lose.
Yes, exactly.
We all lose.
We all lose. Yeah, but those casing stones were probably put on there by the pharaohs who they think built the pyramids. That's what I think.
Maybe so.
So they were probably on there writing all their standard
Except
model.
the only problem with that is that it is from the original base that the casing stones were started from, which is where you get the circumference measurement.
I don't think that there weren't original casing
okay.
stones. I think that there were.
They didn't encase it in the stones, but they went up there and carved all the symbols in.
No. I mean that I think that they removed the originals because they were so heavily eroded, and then put new ones on there.
Oh.
Because you're right, the sockets that the pyramid is set into in the base, and I can't remember what Randall Carlson calls them, but there's the bedrock is actually cut down in a big square all the way around it, and the casing stones used to go all the way to the edge of that square.
Yeah, it has like there's a whole platform that's actually stands up off of the bed. That it's attached to the bedrock.
Yeah.
And then the pyramid comes off of that. And there are corner depressions.
Yeah.
Big square depressions on the four corners that this.
Yeah.
I can't. They said the name is something like sockets or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the measurement of that base and the angle that those casing stones would have been to the height that it would have been, which is where all of the the
Processional numbers.
right
come from,
and the measurement of the earth comes from.
Right. Yeah. And then pi and phi
Yeah.
are in that. Yeah. So I think that original socket or platform and the sockets were cut by the original builders,
Yeah.
and they probably cased it. But you can tell that, at least with the Great Pyramid, that there was something else there first, because there's that mound underneath it that is not really explained.
But it could have been covered in hieroglyphs, and those hieroglyphs were the origin of the language, of the written language that the later Egyptians actually began to use.
That's why it just appeared fully formed.
That's right, because the entire alphabet and everything.
How did they translate it?
I don't know.
Mind bullets.
They were closer to it than we are.
Yeah. But not much. If it was built
Right.
10,000 years ago.
But still, it's not like if they found that site, fairly pristine compared to what we have now.
Yeah.
They might have. There's no reason why they shouldn't have had badass nerds.
Well, and they probably found library stuff. I mean, like, what was that guy's name? Hakeem, whatever the dude was in the Pyramid Code who talked about the caves all in
Yeah.
Giza. There was probably, and I mean, like Jordan. I can't remember if we talked about this on the show, but the Bell Caves of Jordan. I know I've mentioned them. In Jordan, which is not that far away.
Yeah.
This is all in the
Don't
Middle
do
East.
that.
In Jordan, there are these huge things they call the Bell Caves of Jordan, and they call them that because they're roughly bell-shaped. Like from the inside, it's like standing in a giant bell. It comes down straight, but it curves up, and in the top there's this enormous oculus, a hole to the sky. But the walls of these caves have all these triangles cut into them, just directly into the stone, that are deep. Okay, and they're triangle shaped, and there's just thousands of them all over the walls. And if you look at ancient scroll storage, they were triangular shelves. So, like, the standard model is that this was like pigeon hatcheries or something like that. And I'm like, no, that was clearly a library. Like, they stored scrolls in these triangular holes. They're all gone now.
The strongest
that.
shelf structure you can build.
Pyramids. They're all pyramids. So, and the other thing about the Bell Caves is, like, they're connected to each other with these enormous sets of caverns, and it's not clear if they were cut completely out of the bedrock or if there was existing caves that they modified. But there's pillars, and I have this one picture where there's all these pillars. So they're holding up they're supporting the ceiling by rock pillars. They're not filled. So somebody cut this room out and left pillars in place, and they're all beautifully carved. But the room is half full of this giant wave of mud that is now turned into stone. And the pillars are like sticking out of it, so you can tell that.
There's so many places like that we know of. There's bound to be more that we don't know of.
Yes.
That still have all the scrolls in the triangles. You know what I'm saying? That still have all of the writing on the outside.
That don't have any skeletons stuck to the spikes.
That's right. No skeletons stuck to the spikes.
All the giant stone balls are still up in their pockets, and none of the traps are set off.
No skeletons wrapped in toilet paper in boxes inside.
Wrapped in toilet paper. Man, I'm gonna put that in my will. Wrap me in toilet paper and get me in a box.
Put me in a box, inside a box, inside a big stone box.
Yeah.
That's
the
12
other-
feet long.
That's the other thing, like, you look at those giant sarcophagi, like the ones in the Serapeum, right? The huge granite, beautifully carved, like polished. Those things are like 70 tons or whatever. And until very recently, like the advent of high explosives, basically, getting inside those boxes was impossible to people. So if you were,
Because they were
They were like perfectly. The lids were like perfectly fitted on, and you couldn't even get a tool.
You can't open it.
It was the same deal with the outside of the casing stones on the pyramid. They couldn't get a freaking tool in there, break them apart. It's like an earthquake.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that made one crack, and they were able to open it all up. That's what I'm saying. Like, so you could seal things inside of these giant cases, and be fairly sure that it would be that nobody could get to it, at least not without an enormous amount of work. So if you can cut granite, and nobody, and like that the humans they have copper, but that's it. Like they're not gonna be able to get into that box.
I cannot do that.
There's also like so many Sumerian, Akkadian, all these ancient stone clay tablets and stuff that are full of writing that are just sitting in the basements of museums that have never been translated, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Stand down or die.
I wonder why that is. Like, why aren't they doing this stuff?
And they're still uncovering like thousands of them. They're
Yeah.
just- and it's like you go pick one, and it's like, he took out my brain tumor today, and paid him 74 ducats. And they're like, damn it.
I cannot do that.
Give me another one that took me 6 months to figure out. I mean, you can't blame them.
Oh, okay, because it takes so long.
Yeah, and
not because it was a brain tumor operation.
No, it's just because it's like it takes a long time to translate it, and then you find out that it's just a receipt.
Yeah, for a sheep or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like somewhere, and I think what if they did this on purpose? Right? They're just like
It's like the internet's just full of bullshit.
yeah, just print everything on clay and fire it. It's like you have like because that's the best way to like prevent somebody from stealing all your knowledge is to surround you've got a couple of monks and their job is to create the cylinder seals of like the real shit.
Yeah.
And then you've got everybody else who are just sitting there with styluses, just like bullshit. And you're just you got these massive chimneys and fires going all the time. You're just firing all this clay. It's like, yeah, we're
Cannot do that.
so they don't know that real science is being recorded or where it is. Yeah, destroy it, steal it, whatever.
Right. I got you.
I just came up with that theory just now.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing.
It's like unclassified information overload. The stuff that no one cares about, you just make millions of them. And you know that no one's going to be able to find your secret knowledge. Yeah. Well, and you have to wonder, like, so this past weekend we were arrowhead hunting again, and I was like, yesterday I was sitting there and I had found one. And I was sitting there and looking at it. And it was just, I don't know, I was just thinking about the idea of like, the guy who made this, the last dude who had it, or whatever, the guy who was making it, like, he had no idea that thousands of years from now, like, I would be sitting in this crazy construction next to, like, this thing you couldn't possibly understand, holding his artifact going, wow, this is really cool. Next to all this technology I've got around me, and I'm like, man, this thing is badass. Right? I'm holding his rock, like, wow. Surrounded by computers and TVs and, all this stuff. Running water and, I was just thinking about that, like, how many
pack of smokes?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. A butane torch.
That just blows his mind right there. I'm like, oh my god.
But like, how many of our artifacts are like that? Like, what thing do you think that you have in your life where you can look at it and be like 4,000 years from now, someone else is going to be holding this, wondering about the last person that had it?
Only my arrowheads.
That's right. Only my stone hammer.
That's right. Yeah. Only the arrowheads that I found. Those are the only things I have that are still going to be here 4,000 years from now.
Right.
That somebody could find under the ashes of my house and everything else.
Yeah, that's true. All right, we're going to take one more break and come back and finish the show.
It's a massive archaeosynchronicity. The jars in the plane of jars were landmines. They were Anunnaki landmines.
Oh, I see. Anunnaki landmines.
That's right. In an ancient
In an
war.
ancient secret
Right.
war. Okay.
Yep.
Making jokes about things we probably shouldn't be making jokes about. It's too soon? I don't know.
Archaeosynchronicity.
Archaeosynchronicity.
That's what they are.
Retroarchaeocausality.
Causalityology.
Yeah, so we were talking some more about this during the break, and Brett was pointing out like Laos and Cambodia they're basically right next to each other. I mean, it's like I can't remember what the geology or the geography is exactly, but Laos is either in Cambodia or right next to it. But the Sulawesi Valley in Cambodia has lots of. We've kind of touched on this before, but it has lots of completely unexplained megalithic sculptures, and they're just kind of sticking out of these rice fields. You know, like I think I've shown you some pictures. Like there's ones like there's this pond, and there's these gigantic eyes of this weird stone sculpture just sort of sticking out of the water, and it's like incredibly. I'm like, I would not swim in that pond. There's a giant stone thing in there, and it's looking at me. But there are stone jars in the Sulawesi Valley in Cambodia that look just like the stone jars on the Plain of Jars in Laos, and the ones in Cambodia still have the lids, and the lids have these. They're heavily eroded now, but you can see. So like the lid is this big circle, and then there's these four things on it on the edges that look like handles, like you would grab to pick it up or turn it or something like that. They stick up off the lid, and they're actually carved into these high relief lizards, these big lizard or you know, like serpentine with legs sculptures. I don't know if they're lizards exactly, but they look like lizards. And it's the same lizard sculpture that's found, the high relief lizard sculpture that's found on the sides of some of the T-pillars at Göbekli Tepe. It sticks off of it. And they're also on the Chulpas that you were talking about, the Chulpa Towers in Peru. Like one of the blocks will have this lizard, like looking like it's crawling around the outside of the tower on the Chulpa Towers, and it's the same thing.
Man, that's freaking so mysterious.
Yeah. So the other story, and this is Brett was asking about local myths, and this is more along the lines of local myth than standard model. This is not the standard model explanation for the jars, which is that they were funerary. But it's a myth, but it's not from like native. I'm pretty sure that the people that would be considered natives in this area they're gone. Too many ethnic cleansing that have happened here, so there's not really. But anyway, there's this idea that there was this ancient war, which is interesting that you're talking about this archaeosynchronicity. But there was an ancient war that was won by this great king, and in order to celebrate the war for all of his warriors, he brought them all out there, and they made enormous amounts of beer in the jars, and that's what they were for. It was a huge party, and they threw all their beer cans down, and those are the jars.
Well, it's like the Sumerians supposedly made beer in these big clay jars.
Yeah.
And they would just like, you have the big clay jars sitting at the table, like on the floor.
Yeah.
Right? And you got your table, and it's like everybody has a straw.
Oh.
Like they have these long reed straws, and you're just like, yeah. They didn't have mugs. They all drank out of that same jar.
They didn't use horns? Wow. Nope. Dip your horn in there.
Yeah. They drink out of them with reed straws.
Huh.
It's like, so you'd have a party, and it's like, I brought the keg, man. It's like everybody's just drinking out of it with a
Giant
straw.
stone jar.
Yeah.
That's interesting. No, that was if that's what it was a huge party. That was a giant
Oh,
keg.
yeah.
How many kegs do you have in your party? 20,000. Done. So
That is a really strange thing, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like, how many places like that? Like, you got this I don't know if you were just an alien and you're coming down to the planet, right? And you're just like
Just
looking
arrived
around.
from Mars.
Yeah, you just arrived from Mars. You're just checking it out, and you're like, okay. Oh, look, here's a place with a bunch of gigantic, perfectly carved and polished stone spheres.
Yeah.
That's really odd. And then you go to this other place, you're like, look, here's a place with thousands of gigantic faces carved out of stone laying around in the desert or in the jungle. That's kind of strange.
Yeah. Oh, look, here's a tiny island in the middle of nowhere with gigantic stone heads, and some of them have full bodies. That's sort of weird.
Oh, and by the way, there are giant triangles everywhere.
Yes.
It's like, what is going on? Doesn't make sense.
So, other interesting. There's some other interesting correlations here, but yeah, it's, the Watcher says
He's got it.
he's got
down.
it.
No, I got it. But go ahead, give it a shot.
All right, so you know that ball in a cup game? The giant polished stone spheres are where they made the balls, and the planar jars is where they made the cups. And you brought them together, and then you had that ball in the cup game. You just tossed the ball and catch it in the cup.
So this was beer pong. Yeah, it was Megalitha beer pong.
Oh, yeah, there
So the beer party story is sort of right. But it was
Megalitha beer pong.
Megalitha pong. Something like that.
And Ballback was where they made the table.
That's why it's called ballbank. That's the ancient word for beer pong.
Stand down or die.
And obviously, the pyramids are where they brewed the beer.
Those are the breweries. Yeah. That's why they have all those weird tunnels over there. Yeah.
Mystery
Mystery solved. Next mystery. You heard it here first, folks. Those are the serpents.
Stand down.
Saw when they
Die.
Wait, why they worship the sun? Oh yeah.
Corona insult.
That's the corona. Wow.
I love this theory. New theory.
So, let's see. Okay, so other interesting correlations, like if you, again, with the Sulawesi Valley in Cambodia, that has the jars that look like the jars, the planar jars in Laos, that have the lids, that have the lizards that connect to Peru, connect to Tepe. Also in Sulawesi are these megalithic statues or sculptures. And they're megalithic, so they're enormous. They're like, think Moai, like Easter Island
the
size.
trophies.
Yeah, they're the beer pong trophies. Or they're the guys who are they're the
cannot
carvings
do
of the
that.
champions, right? Because some of them have giant boners. Just saying. But the statues have these they have the particular way that they're holding their hands, right, around the sort of like around the waist. It's like the arms come down to the sides and then the hands come around like sort of like right under the belly, like they're holding their belt,
Yeah.
which connects to Göbekli Tepe, which connects to Easter Island. The way the hands are held, that very specific, strange position, and then the long, narrow fingers.
Right.
The other fascinating connection to me is that the way the faces are carved on these Sulawesi statues is that it's that the statues themselves are sort of flat, right? So it's a big megalith shaped like a, I don't know, think of like a classic Dracula's coffin. It's sort of narrow at the bottom and it kind of comes up and is rounded at the top. And then they've just sort of carved this artistic or it's not a carving of a real person.
Like a
It's-
super deformed guy.
Yeah, but it's like the lines are all very.
Right.
It's very stylistic, right? So the face, the nose is just these two sharp lines that come all the way up and curve around above the eyes to make the eyebrows, and then the
Yes.
eyes themselves are these ovals. And that looks exactly like Jomon statues from Japan. Okay, the Jomon made, and then the ancient, what we were calling the eye statues, right? That just have the big eyes. It has the same sort of those two lines that come up and go, you know, like think of an explosion. Or a tree. It starts at the bottom, curves up, goes up like narrow like the trunk, and then curves out to make the top of the tree or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that to make the face, and then the eyes are in there. There's statues like this all over the Sulawesi Valley, sticking out of water and hanging out in rice paddies, and you know, they're very strange looking, very stylistically designed. And the Jomon statues have that same feature. They're flat and they have these wide heads with this curving face structure. And really, it's just like you can kind of play the 6 Ways from Kevin Bacon game with this. You can find these, with these ancient structures, you can see this particular style or the way they're holding their hands, the position, and then you can make correlations to other places in the world. And then those particular statues that you correlated to have other features on them that correlate to other places, and you can go all around the world with this. So some people say that makes it false correlations, but it's not really, because that style, like art styles are very specific.
Yeah.
You know, and like, why are people putting lizards on their megalithic structures all over the world?
Yeah.
High relief lizards the way that they draw them, or the way that they carve them out, makes it look like they're crawling on the structure. Like, you know, it specifically looks like that. Like the ones on the Cholpa statues, the Cholpa towers, the lizard looks like it's running down the tower, going around it. Like it'll be on one block, but it's diagonal on the block, like a natural lizard is crawling down the statue. And in Göbekli Tepe, it's running down the side of one of the T-pillars. It's the same deal, you know. And then these T-pillars have this very particular way they're holding their hands, which connects to Easter Island. Like, I'm saying that, like, yes, this is a global. It looks like.
Yeah, and it's like. There's one thing like to say, oh, it's an art style, right? But that, I don't know, for some reason, there's too much significance to symbolism in all of these ancient cultures. So to me, it's like
I meant the specific style of carving.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I'm just trying to point out that, like, I think these things are also a language. Like they are, like, when you say back in the times when those were built, right, when all that stuff was built, when you saw a building that had that lizard on it, it meant something. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily just who made it.
Okay,
but it was a symbol that meant something about the structure. Or the meaning of the structure, or the purpose of the structure.
Purpose of it.
Right.
Yeah. So, in my correlation, the ones with the lizards on them have to do with metallurgy. Those Cholpa towers, I think, were giant smelting things, because there's no entrance, but there's a little hole at the bottom. Right? So you pour all the stuff in the top, and then molten metal comes out of the bottom. And then the giant stone jars are crucibles. So they have the lizards on the lid, right?
Maybe it's a chameleon.
Right. Could be a chameleon, yeah, or a salamander. Fire.
Why is a salamander fire?
It's just associated with fire, I don't know.
I was thinking a chameleon. It's like smelting and changing.
Oh, yeah.
And changing something else.
But if it was a chameleon structure, you shouldn't be able to see it against the background.
Completely totally. It's made out of the same.
All right, so we went a little long in the last couple of segments. So I have one last thing I want to do, and this touches on a story that you told a couple of shows ago, and I just found this. But this is from MysteriousSuniverse.org, and it's called. The heading is Ukrainian villagers are terrified as sheep are mysteriously drained of blood. For almost 50 years now, the phenomenon of animal mutilations has baffled ranchers, scientists, and law enforcement officers. Over the decades, countless livestock holders worldwide have discovered their cattle dead, with specific organs missing from their bodies, removed with surgical precision. These mutilations are bloodless and exhibit no physical evidence of human involvement, such as footprints or tire tracks. And there is no evidence of animal predation. In most cases, other animals seem to be spooked by the mutilated carcasses and give them a wide berth. Disturbingly, a great many animal mutilation cases have been directly preceded or followed by sightings of the same location of mysterious lights in the sky, leading UFO researchers to suspect extraterrestrial involvement.
Steve!
Since the mid-1990s, innumerable animals of all shapes and sizes have been found dead in bizarre circumstances across Central and South America and the Caribbean, exsanguinated, seemingly through precise puncture marks in their bodies, often without a drop of blood being spilled. So, exsanguination is
I
drain of
cannot do
blood.
that.
I'm pretty sure. This particular type of mutilation has become associated with a cryptozoological creature known as the chupacabra, or goatsucker, a monstrous vampiric entity that preys on unsuspecting animals. Judging by fresh reports, it seems that the chupacabra may have expanded its territory to Eastern Europe. The Daily Star reports that 8 sheep corpses with holes in their necks were recently found by a farmer in the village of Matvisi, in eastern Ukraine's Ternopily Oblast region. Describing the scene, farmer Mikhailo Ostyutyuk said the corpses of the sheep were scattered in different parts of the sheepfold. Looks like they were hunted and killed one by one. He says he now plans to install CCTV cameras in the sheep pen to catch whatever creature may be responsible. A veterinarian named Maria noted that each corpse had 2 holes on the neck artery. Whoa. And that all the bodies were drained completely of blood, even their hearts. All the blood was sucked from the bodies through the holes in their necks and legs. And I did not find any single spot of blood on the ground near their corpses. I've never seen anything like it. Now here's a picture of one of the wounds on one of the sheep. Is that familiar?
I don't know.
That well.
It looks pretty big. Like these were.
It's hard to see. Yeah.
It looks like something sticking out of that.
Yeah, like it's a. I think they shaved the area.
I mean, they were just.
Yeah, so like.
They were like vampire teeth holes.
Yeah, that's the tiny hole.
Cannot do that.
Yeah, in the area that they shaved. Okay. A local hunter has said that the kills could not be attributed to dogs, foxes, or wolves. We do not have wolves in the area as we do not have large forests here. If it had been a wolf, it would have pulled the carcass to a safe place before eating it. Also, a wolf usually eats the flesh of its victim.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask, if they're drained of blood, would they be bloated anyway?
Bloating would happen later after they died. But yeah, they were bloated. It was a gas
Because
bacteria.
that was the thing. Like they were just big and round.
Right.
Just,
Yeah, so
their
because
stomach was all bloated.
yeah,
They,
but that's gases after death.
It wasn't like their fur was not covered in blood. It was just 2 little bloody spots where
Yeah.
the holes were.
Exactly. According to the story, yeah. So we don't know if the ones you found were drained of blood, but I'm just saying that, like,
I know. That's why I was curious. What do they look like when they're drained of blood? Like, do they look the same?
yeah, there's a picture of it. But it's dead the night before. The ones you found were dead longer, and they had bloated from gas and
Yeah, that doesn't look like it's all shriveled or anything.
Right. No. Yeah. Okay, according to the Star, neither local authorities, vets, nor villagers have any idea what kind of creature could suck all the blood from 8-year-old sheep. Apparently, the locals are now scared to leave their houses. Only last week, it was reported that 10 sheep had been killed in mysterious circumstances in the Indian village of Banjanagar. Okay, Banjanagar in Odisha.
I like the first one better.
In Odisha, an area with a history of unexplained animal mutilations. Writing here at Mysterious Universe, Brett Tingley noted that the 10 sheep were found dead with their intestines missing. Some of the sheep were found in village streets while others were killed and mutilated in their pens. After discovering his sheep, one local farmer reported finding deep nail indentations on their neck parts pointing at a predator attack. So, I just wanted to read that because I'm crazy. Yeah. It's punctured on the neck artery.
Yeah, right on the side.
Yeah. Drained them, exsanguinated.
Yeah, so in many respects, it does look like it was just the.
Yeah, the way that we're showing it is
Yeah.
weird, but yeah, that tiny little hole, it's like a fang marker, puncture that was completely.
Yeah, they look like a hole that like a 22 would make.
Yeah.
Right? But there were 2 of them, and they were right next to each other. And
Yeah.
then, not an entrance and exit wound.
Right.
Obviously, like 2 entrance wounds,
Yeah,
and both of them were the same, exact same.
right. So it's very possible that you witnessed. I mean, we don't know because we have no way of figuring it out now, but it's possible that you witnessed the aftermath of some kind of mysterious animal mutilation and exsanguination. The whole, like, how did they get out of their pen and, like...
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Crazy shit. Crazy shit.
All right. I think that's it for this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about the short segment. We went way long on the last segment, so this one's just kind of short. But you guys get Beyond Pod if you're not using it. If you have an Android phone and you like podcasts, Beyond Pod is the way to go. It is the way to go. We both use it and we love it. It is Beyond Pod. You can look it up. You can use it for free. The paid version is awesome, but the free version works just as good. You just get basically the main thing that I see in the paid version is you can set a download queue. You know, whereas with the free version you can only download one thing at a time.
Yeah.
But with the paid version you can say download this.
And another thing is you can tell it to automatically download. You can set it up to automatically download, and you can tell it to only download with Wi-Fi.
That's
so
true.
if you have a data plan and you don't want to go over your data, it won't just arbitrarily download stuff on your data plan.
Yeah.
So you can actually like set it all up to do what you want for the fees that you want, and make sure it's like not going to cost you a fortune.
Yeah.
So that's really
And no matter how many podcasts you have, or like you've listened to a piece of one and then you go listen to something else, it saves your spot on every
Yeah.
one of them. So that's really cool.
a lot of great features.
Yeah, lots of great features. Also,
And the show content is right there. I mean, like when
Yeah.
when you download a show, you click on the main body of the episode, and it will just bring up the show content with all the pictures and everything.
yeah, loaded into the app itself. Another thing I wanted to remind people, if you're new listeners or whatever, new listeners, go listen to episode 62 with Clint Beckham. And if you're interested in looking for arrowheads or going on a paid dig or going on any kind of hunting trips with him, he's a great guide. So check that episode out. And all of his information is in the show notes of that episode. So get a hold of him if you guys want to do it. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
He's
Hello?
a cool dude. Go to the website for the encyclopedia. Lots of pictures and great stuff in there.
If you don't know what a shamir is,
Yeah.
go to the website.
If you've never heard of a rock cut temple, go check out the encyclopedia. And if you guys could share shows on Facebook, that would help us out a lot. We don't have social media because we're lame. We're not good at it. But if you can easily share any show by going to the website, clicking on the name of the show on the website, and that'll bring you to the page for the show itself, and you can share that URL in Facebook, and it'll make a pre-built link with the picture and everything like that. And contribute to our pyramid scheme to send us straight to pyramids.
Yep.
And like I've thought about this, and like I want to make sure that people know that like it doesn't matter if you send 50 cents. Like you don't have to be like sending us $100 or whatever. You know, like any donation would be great. So like any, you know, however much you want to send. If you want to send some, it doesn't matter if it's a small donation. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because we're gonna do this anyway.
Right. We're going to do it anyway, so it doesn't matter if you send us 25 cents. Like, that'll be awesome. I mean, if you want to send us a bunch of money, go for it, but it doesn't have to be a large amount to make a donation. And that's about it. You can get a hold of us also at brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. You can comment on the website on any of the shows, and we do read comments on the show if they're like particularly insightful, or if they're funny, or just if they're there. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks,
And,
everybody.
Yep. Check out the show notes for this show to see all the pictures. I will post them tomorrow.
Hi, one.
Hi one. United Damu. Go make some jars and beer. Bombs.
Megalithopon.
Megalith bombs.